and give a warm welcome to our moderator, TK Walker.
Hello, everyone, and thank you guys for coming out this early in the morning for our on-campus students. I also like to thank the students that are attending online. Welcome. This is the Rising Tide of Esports. My name is TK Walker. I am the course director for the Mobility, Technology, and Marketing course here in the Sports Marketing and Media program, and I welcome you all. I'm excited about this panel. I want you guys to put your hands together. We have an exciting panelist. Put your hands together for all of our panelists at first. To your far right, we have our very own Grant Shonkwiler. He's producer of Epic Games, 2008 game design and development graduate. Grant. Next, we have Sam Keene, regional marketing manager for Red Bull. Welcome, Sam. And last but not least, we have Alex Jebailey. He's founder of CEO Gaming and P&R community manager. Welcome. So let's get right to it. Before I begin with our panelists, I'll get a poll for what we have in the audience. By a show of raise of hands, how many of you have been involved, whether participated or been involved in an esports tournament? Let's go back first, 2002. All right, we have a few. Wow. 2004. Keep your hands up. 2004. 2006. Here we go. 2008. 2010. 2012. 2014. And now, anyone who's participated, whether watched one or been involved in esports? There we go. And there's the rising tide, folks. Esports has blown up, kind of came out of nowhere, and we're going to find out from our wonderful panelists how it evolved. Some discussion points we're going to talk about is the evolution of it, esports versus traditional sports. We're going to talk about the business of esports, as well as tournaments, how to get involved, skills and demand, and the future of esports. I also want this to be interactive, so start thinking of questions that you want to ask the panelists because we're going to take questions from the audience as well. All right? Cool. So let's just get started. Before I begin, I want to go down our panelists and find out how did you guys get started in the esports, and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today. Anyone can jump in.
All right, I'll start. So I'm Grant Shonkwiler. I graduated in game development in 2008 and immediately went into a programming job working on casual games at a company called Megatouch Games. They're no longer in existence. And worked there for a while as a programmer and then designer and then lead designer. So nothing to do with esports there. And then I left there and I went to id Software, where I worked on Rage, Doom, and Wolfenstein, and a little bit of Quake. And Quake was kind of my first involvement with esports, going to QuakeCon, watching these guys play Quake. I tried to play Quake, and then I would play with these guys, and it was like, I got a kill. Or like I didn't kill myself. It was something like that, right? You know, I was playing with these guys, and they were on such a different level than what we were in the office. And when we were working on Doom multiplayer, that was really like our focus wasn't to make an esport, but it was to make a game that was as enjoyable to watch as it is to play. And now I work at Epic Games, and I work on a game called Fortnite, which is doesn't really have a PvP element right now, but has a PvE element, and really. That and the other game we're working on, Paragon, which is a MOBA and a PvP, our focus is to make a good game that is as much fun to play as to watch as it is to play. And we feel like if you make a good game, you make something fun to play, fun to watch, then the community will tell you, hey, we want an esport out of this. We will build it into an esport. And you know, with Fortnite, we've tested some PvEP stuff, and everybody's like, we really like this. It's fun to play. It's fun to watch. And you know, maybe in the future it becomes an esport. But that's the interesting thing from the dev side is like, you don't really go out and you're like, I'm going to make an esport. What you do is you're like, I'm going to make a really good game, and I'm going to put the hooks in there that make it fun to watch, and you know, have a replay system and stuff like that. And if you know, if people want to turn it into an esport, the community will tell you. So that's my involvement.
Good deal. So that's coming from the game development side. Sam, tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to be up here with these two guys who are obviously connected to gaming. My gaming story started, actually, I got my job at Red Bull, my first internship at Red Bull by beating the crap out of people playing Halo 2.
Yes.
I just college students stopped by their office and saw that there were some workers playing Halo in a corner, and they needed another player to complete the multiplayer. And humbly smashed them. And they were like, wait, what do you do? Why are you even here? And that got me a job. And several years later, I started the esports department for Red Bull, when really just before Twitch launched, we were looking at gamers as a consumer segment. And that was 2010. And 2015, it feels like a world of difference. Back then, we had to convince people that gaming was a real thing, and now it's everybody understands that it's a real thing, but now it's about what's next, what's coming, how do we stay ahead of the curve.
Right. Good deal. Good deal. And so that's coming from the sponsorship side outside of beating people as an internship. What about you, Alex?
So I've been pretty much a gamer since I was 2 years old. I had two older brothers that got me started in the 80s. I am pretty old, sorry. But I basically grew up playing games because my older brothers all the time, and we were playing the 90s games in the arcades, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, all that. So I don't know if any of you guys remember, but in the early 90s, anybody remember the World Blockbuster Video Game Challenge?
Yeah.
I won the very first one ever for Super Nintendo. What? So I am the... It's so long ago when I still talk about it. It's like that one movie, the guy talking about crocodile tears all his life. So basically, I won that, and then from there, I was 11 years old when that happened, and that just got me addicted to competing, and I just loved to compete. And then the 90s kept going, and I kept going to arcades, and I never really played in like Street Fighter tournaments for the most part. But late 90s, I kind of stopped, and I switched over to Dance Dance Revolution. Started competing in DDR. Then I switched over to professional card games. So I competed in a lot of stuff. And then fortunately, because I was playing in all these tournaments, nobody was really running them when I went to UCF. And I started running small events, like 10 to 20 person free tournaments, just to run them because I wanted to keep playing, and that was the only way I could play is if I ran them. So I'd always play, sadly win some of my tournaments, and then just kept going. And then in the late 2000, around 2008, Street Fighter 4 came out. Does anybody here play Street Fighter 4? So, oh, wow, not that many, okay. So Street Fighter 4 came out. That was after like a 5-year hiatus where I just kind of stopped playing games. I focused on my career, which was a family business at Disney World tickets. So that's a whole nother story. And I started CEO in 2010 out of just a whim that a guy I was helping canceled his event, and everyone's like, what are we going to do? This guy pretty much took all the registration money, disappeared off the face of the earth. And I'm like, all right, let's step up. So this is where Community Effort Orlando started from, by just people stepping up to help me. I funded it with my own money. Wasn't very much. It was a very small, 10,000 square foot AC broke down Central Florida Fairgrounds hut, as we called it, the airplane hangar. I know you were there. And it started from that, and that had about 300 people in 2010. Fast forward to 2015, had 4,000 attendees last year. And that last year was probably the last time I really competed. And I'm like, what? I actually get more enjoyment out of watching other people compete and have a good time and meet people from all over the world that love video games. And because of CEO, that got me my full-time career now, which I left the family business for, so don't be afraid to take risks. I didn't find my calling until I was 31 years old. I'm 33 now. And now Iron Galaxy Studios. Has anybody ever heard of Iron Galaxy? Cool. Killer Instinct fighting game. I actually am the community manager for that fighting game. So for me to play fighting games all my life, now have a career in the industry, to see the sponsorship side, the development side, see it all to come together, just means that much more to me. And that's my gaming history. Could go on forever, but let's get back to the panel.
Side note, Alex will be doing a DDR showdown after this.
I went to an event in Texas last week. It was the Killer Instinct World Championships, and they had an after party at the guy's arcade, and they had a DDR machine. They had it covered. I'm like, take it all down. So he turns it on. The first time I played in 6 years, I played one song right away, doubles heavy. I nearly passed out. I was like, I cannot do this anymore. My stamina's gone. But yeah, that's DDR.
Good deal, good deal. So we have a diverse range of panelists here, from game dev to sponsorship to actually organizing events. What challenges have you seen from the beginning of your experience in esports up to now. So we're going to get into the business of it in a second. What challenges have you seen in esports?
For me, with CEO, it's not as big as some of these, MLG events, the big, not Call of Duty. When Halo first started, then you have the StarCraft, which once League of Legends came in and took over. My hardest part was pretty much getting businesses to understand that this is where the money is going to start coming from, is these diehard fans that love video games, but if you offer them products that are a part of their daily life as a gamer, they're gonna spend their money and enjoy it as well. So first couple years as CEO I didn't have a single sponsorship because I had to prove that the event was worth something and that there was enough people to facilitate a sponsor getting involved. So now that ESPN has its own esports section, that's probably the first major step. And just, getting businesses, you got to start locally, obviously, with local mom and pop shops to get involved in this stuff. But now you have, is it on? Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Now you have Red Bull involved. So now Red Bull is one of the biggest companies in the world. And now that you have them involved, all these other companies are starting to get involved. So it's just a snowball effect. Once one big company sees it, now ESPN sees it. In my opinion, a lot of people that watch ESPN normally just for sports that don't know video games, they're probably not going to click that esports, section on the website. But the more they see it come into TV with TV shows and all that, and now recently on the CW, there was a Mortal Kombat tournament show that just started this week. So that's, it's coming. It's, I've been here since day one, and now to see it all on live TV, even though Twitch is way bigger now, viewership-wise, but it's still, any avenue is a good avenue, especially with publicity.
Good deal. Sam, what have you seen?
Early days of esports. And when I say early, I mean the modern era of esports. I don't necessarily mean the early 2000s or in the 90s.
The Super Nintendo.
Yeah, not those.
Championships.
Let's all. We could talk about it, but it's esports. What was awesome is once we were able to stream and to show people how many people could watch esports and be able to talk about that in a broader medium. That's when everybody started paying attention to it, and we were able to get past some of the early hurdles. But one of the earlier challenges were, for a brand, why are we here? Like convincing people why we needed to be in esports, why gamers were relevant. And once we got past that, and once there started to be some momentum there, now the challenge is what's next? Gaming and esports changes every day. Yeah. Every day something new evolves. Every day a new game is launched that could be the next big title. And so that's the biggest challenge, is having that foresight to get ahead of it.
Yeah, I think from more of the fan perspective, what's been really interesting is bars that I normally go to, will just be showing esports. I'm like, oh, I guess I'll sit here and watch League of Legends. That's a thing now. It for a while it was Barcraft was the thing. Come watch people play StarCraft. But now it's I'll be in a sports bar and there will be one of the screens will have a League of Legends on it, and it's just a Twitch stream, and I'm waiting for the ESPN for there to be a top 10 play from League or Dota or something, right? They're look at this top 10 play, and people will be like, what? But I think for me the craziest thing is so as you can see, I'm wearing a rugby jersey. It's a shtick of mine, and I'm a huge rugby fan. And when I started seeing people, not just in my game studios, but out in the wild wearing esports team jerseys, I'm like, is that a Dindy? Is that a Navi jersey? Are they really wearing a Dota jersey? Just at the mall? And I'm of course I run over and I'm like, so is that what I think it is? And the guy's like, yeah, of course. And so that is, you see somebody wearing a Marshawn Lynch jersey, and then you see somebody wearing some dude's gamer handle jersey. That's becoming normal. And that is, as a player and as someone who is just a fan, it's exciting that it's becoming just as normal and as normal everyday life as just regular sports.
So Grant, you mentioned normal, and you mentioning the comparison between traditional sports and esports, whether it's at a bar watching a game or you walking around, you see people with jerseys on. So let's bring up the topic: esports versus traditional sports. Is esports considered a professional sport? If so, why? And if not, why? Anyone can jump in.
I think it is. Yeah. Why not? You have to be in shape to play an esport. You have to be every person I've met who plays an esport at a top level. Every Quake player I've met plays another sport. They play tennis or racquetball, something that keeps their reflexes and their body in shape. You have to be mentally there, and to be there, you have to be in shape. And so, just like any other sport, you have to train for it. crazy hours. You train both physically, mentally, and in the game. You know, baseball players don't just go play baseball for 8 hours a day. They spend time in the gym. They do other things. They watch film. Same exact thing with top esports players. They watch film, they exercise, they work out, and then they practice for hours and hours every day. You know, I don't really see any difference. And I've played every major sport there is, and I don't see any difference in what they do and what, you know, a normal athlete does. The only thing is they're probably not going to get a concussion, right? So they're not wrecking their body. Maybe their eyes will get messed up, or they might get carpal tunnel. But like those are, you know, that's like the worst thing that happens to you compared to like, you know, brain damage. But yeah, I totally see it as a sport the exact same. And the crazy thing is I mean, you guys can speak to this probably better than I can. Like more people are watching like league finals than they are watching like the World Series, or you know, there's more money involved in like the Masters and stuff like that. So to me, it's almost the same.
I think everybody in this room would have considered like esports athletes 5 years ago. Like nobody in this room needed convincing. I think we've done a really good job convincing everybody outside of these walls that gamers are athletes as well, which is really, really nice. And some of that's coming from the stratification of all the leagues. Like League of Legends Riot Games has done a great job of creating a structure that somewhat mimics traditional sports, so that traditional sports can get behind gaming as a sport. And to Alex's point, ESPN coming on is more than just ESPN and more than just a news source, but it also adds some credibility and some visibility to gaming as a sport. Once ESPN says it's a sport, it kind of feels like a sport, since that is their motto.
Who was that ESPN caster that, like, I bet he's, like, super upset now, like a year ago.
Yeah.
He's like, esports are not real sports, you know, why are we covering this? And now there's an entire section, so I bet he's like, oh, I'm out of here. But to that, I mean, esports, the word itself gets a lot of either confusion or just people don't like that name. I personally would rather call it competitive gaming, but esports just makes it simple to understand. But just, you know, I think there are still a lot of differences. I mean, esports guys are just now starting to get like sports massages after matches. I mean, if you're in the NFL and stuff, you're getting a consistent salary, but you have the injury differences. But it is becoming more mainstream everywhere you go. I wear a gaming t-shirt and instantly they're like, dude, you're a gamer? I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much second-hand nature to everybody now. So just to see that from like 10 years ago, where if I hosted a video game tournament, I told somebody that, like, what? They didn't understand it. And now they see how much it's grown and just in general, and it just, it's changed the landscape. And now ESPN is going to be the first start, and now more companies are just going to start getting involved. And then at some point, you're going to see, you know, NBA finals are going to happen, and there's going to be a League of Legends finals or a Street Fighter V finals happening at the exact same time. And that's when you're going to know who has the bigger viewership.
Yeah, which one's on ESPN and which one's on ESPN Quattro,
right? Or the Ocho.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like this is becoming a big business. Who are for those who are new to esports and maybe haven't participated? Who are the major stakeholders? Who are the players involved? From the streaming players, from the sponsors, from the organizers? Who are the major players involved, and how do you guys interact with each other?
Depends which, you know, there's the esports side of the, you know, the MOBAs like League of Legends, Dota. Then you have the shooters like Counter-Strike. Then you have the fighting games. EVO is the biggest one. That happens in Vegas every year. They are trendsetters. They're actually moving this year in July. And I go every year as a competitor and just a fan of the organization of it. They're moving to the Mandalay Bay event arena for their finals. So that's a 12,000 seat, you know, that's not as big as the Staples Center's League of Legends was, but this will set the standard for more fighting game tournaments. Super Smash Bros. Anybody here play Super Smash?
Yeah.
So that game is just growing, you know, bigger and bigger. And I only know the fighting game side, so I don't know those. But when you get to sit down with some of these people that run these big events, it's just they're fans of gaming just as much as anybody else. And the whole business side is still new to us. You know, the not the problem, but there's no like one singular leadership panel for all these esports events. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing still. There's no standard set. So that's what's different between like NFL, which has had the same rules, you know, for 50 years plus. Super Bowl 50, yeah, so 50 years plus. You know, stuff like that. So we're still all trying to figure that out. It'll never have one entity controlling every single side of esports, which makes it exciting because everything's always going to be unique to its own. But at the end of the day, it's really just those 1, 2, 3 to 5 guys that are making all the decisions, running stuff with the players' best intentions at heart while they can make money doing it. Because nobody wants to run events, lose money. But at the end of the day, you got to make your competitors happy to make them keep coming back.
Yeah. You actually brought up a really good point, is that, I mean, in this conversation and generally as esports gains steam, we talk about it as esports, but there's a very big difference between FGC shooters and MOBAs. And I mean, I'm a fan of games. I watch a lot of games, but I'm a very specific fan of StarCraft 2. I love watching StarCraft 2. I could watch it for hours and hours and hours every day. But that's not to say that I'm going to watch 10+ hours of another particular game. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting to me the way we group it, and I think it's really nice for us to group it to gain some steam. But to your point about who are the players and how do we, there's a lot of different people trying to figure it out. The FGC community is figuring it out differently than the MOBA community, which is figuring it out differently than the shooter community. So which format will win out? I think it's just nice that we have 3 different approaches to it.
Yeah.
The biggest difference is with League of Legends, all that, you have more of a spectator thing. When you come to the FGC, like EVO, for example, will have like 5,000 unique competitors in one weekend. Yeah. My event will bring over 2,000 unique competitors. You go to those League of Legends event, there's 8 guys. So that side is more of the production side because they have to make it look good because they only have 8 people playing. The FGC side's more at the, not the bottom level, but like the low level of just organizing it so everyone gets a chance to play. So that's the biggest difference between those.
It's interesting to look at because, you know, you guys are talking and like the fighting games thing is almost like the World Series of poker, right? You have a ton of competitors and they're together for days and it kind of goes through. Whereas the MOBAs, it's teams, it's sponsored teams. And what's interesting is we're kind of, you know, you brought up the NFL and it's kind of interesting because we're kind of like, you know, we're watching the birth of sports, which doesn't happen a lot. You know, if you really think about it, most sports, I mean, soccer's been around for thousands of years, you know, rugby's 300 years, you know, football's 100 years. And it's the early days of, you know, the NFL, right? Like they weren't an organization and there was 16 different leagues in the United States alone playing different rules of pigskin football. There were some that were more rugby, some that were more soccer. You know, they were kind of trying to find this thing, and we're kind of watching that happen right now of like how our leagues organized and stuff. But I do think it's going to be organized more per game, and I think we'll have really big games, and then I think we'll have you know, that are done their own way. So, you know, certain fighting games will be done their own way. StarCraft will be done its own way. But I think they'll learn from each other over time. And, you know, Twitch is obviously the biggest platform right now, but, you know, YouTube gaming has come on the scene now. And I think as those are kind of taking over, you know, it's cool that ESPN is getting credibility to it, but most people who are really into esports, they're not going to watch something on ESPN, right? They're going to watch it on Twitch or they're going to watch it on YouTube. And it's interesting because it's almost like ESPN is playing catch up now, right? They're like, there's what, 40 million people that watch the league finals. Like, how do we get our slice of that pie? And it's kind of like, well, we made the pie without you guys. I mean, you can come to the party, but we're already dancing. Yeah. So good luck.
That was good, dude. I like that.
Good point. And that's a good segue into my next question regarding the early adopters. Red Bull seems to be one of the first. You guys, I understand, created a training facility out in California for esports. What are your plans for esports? What do you see esports now and in the future? And what's the involvement with Red Bull?
We have this very secret laboratory where we cook up the future. Honestly, we were very fortunate to have had the insight and the opportunity to get into esports early. I mean, it's what Red Bull loves to do, and we had the right people around us to make that happen. The future, honestly, if I had a crystal ball, I would share it. But for us, it's just staying close to the players because the players are writing the future. It's staying close to the game producers because the game producers are the ones that are creating this roadmap. And then it's just doing what's always been natural to Red Bull, and that's giving wings to people and ideas. And so as long as we're doing that, I think we'll be ahead of the game.
Good deal. Good deal.
And yes, we love our game studio. It's amazing.
That sounds awesome.
And it's a dream come true. Like 5 years ago in 2010, I wouldn't have never thought we would have a game studio in headquarters right next to a skate ramp, right next to a performance facility for Olympic athletes. Like that, to me, those are so interestingly diverse. But they also feel really natural when you're in it. You're like, oh, that's great. That's an Olympian, and that's a gamer, and they're right next to each other having lunch. This is awesome.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point. You know, you're talking about them being athletes. overall, I mean, they're competitors, right? And competitors will always get along with competitors in they'll just talk, right? And that's what's crazy is when I first started going to QuakeCon, I'd go talk to these guys who, had won hundreds of thousands of dollars playing Quake, and I couldn't talk about Quake on their level, but I could talk about different, I've played sports for 20 years, and we'd be talking about like big saves that happened or like big moments, and we're both getting the same level of hype and at the same time learning from each other about competition and how to keep a cool head and things like that. So that's awesome that they're right next to each other because they're going to learn from each other.
One of my first memories was we did like a seminar of some sort, and it was we had a 15-year-old gamer at the time named Enable for Halo. And it was like, an athlete was like, hey, who are you? What do you do? And they were talking about social media followers. And he's like, oh, I have like 100,000 followers on Twitter. And this is years ago. And the mainstream athlete was like, wait, what? Like, who are you again? And just was like so dumbfounded by how popular this kid was, who he had never heard of, and like had not like conceptualized that a gamer would be an athlete.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, one of if you've seen Jeff, who actually is getting inducted, his free-to-play movie, at the end it says like Dindy has more Twitter followers than the Ukrainian national soccer team. Like one dude, and it's like more than like the biggest sport in the world. It's crazy.
Yeah. I have a question. How many gamers out there? How many? Oh, yeah. I have a question just for you. So how feasible is it for a gamer to make a living off of esports? Now, I'm going to ask this from the three different perspectives. Someone who runs tournaments, someone who's in game dev, and someone who sponsors. How feasible is it for the top tier out here to make a living off of esports?
I've actually been sponsored before. NOS Energy Drink, before Red Bull got more involved. They're no longer around, but anyways. I think you can. The reason I kind of switched to organizing from a business standpoint, I think there's more consistent money in running the events. But as a player, it really comes down to personality and approachability. I've seen a lot of players that are really good at games just have no personality whatsoever. So if you don't know how to market yourself to get other companies interested in you, there's really unless you're winning everything consistently, if you don't have personality to match, if you have a bad day at an event and you don't win money, you're still going to have that support if you have a good personality to go with it. You can't really teach personality, but approachability you can teach to learn how to be easier going with people. To make a living, it's just like any sport. There's that top 5% of people that are just better at it than anybody else. So I wouldn't say go quit your day job, but for a lot of you guys here at Full Sail, as in the production side, esports is only going to get bigger, and these events are going to get bigger. So you can use your abilities in other ways to help these events look better. And by that, you can get a full, consistent career out of it. So besides just playing the game specifically, it's really hard. You got to be doing this since day one. You can't just jump in and go, yeah, I'm going to quit my day job and just win everything. It doesn't work like that. There's people that have just been so passionate doing it since day one. But if you can get involved on the production side behind the scenes, you can really go places, because a lot of businesses are starting to get involved. They're taking their marketing budgets, moving it into the gaming side. So think about that as well. You don't have to just play games to be making money in the gaming industry. You can do it behind the scenes and do just as well.
I've been really interested in the professional gamer turned professional streamer, right? So there is the top 5% that are just more talented than other players. And then there's the people who are like, you know what? I recognize I'm not in that 5%, but I'm really funny. Right. And I'm going to be a full-time streamer. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make way more money doing this. And I think that's an important realization to have if you consider yourself a very good player. The other thing is, there are exponentially more jobs in esports today than there were a year ago. Yep. And so I can imagine that trend will continue. So the job market for people in competitive video games is awesome right now. Every company in electronics has a job position for it. Most companies will in the next 5 years. And then I would also say, for me, I never graduated college thinking I would be anywhere near video games. It just happened to work out that way. And I would imagine there's also a lot of people like me who have that same story, who just happened upon it, who is the right person at the right time with the right drive and ambition to say, put me in, I'll take this, I'm going to go with it. And it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot, at the time for me, it was do your day job plus esports and make it happen. And after grinding that out for 2 or 3 years, it finally hit a tipping point where now there are 9 people on the esports team at headquarters in Santa Monica for us, which is unbelievable and really powerful.
That's awesome. Are you sure you didn't just quit because you got old?
For the record, Street Fighter V just came out, and I've already been winning everything I've entered. So I still got it. Still got it.
Is this a comeback?
No, but I just still compete to help my local scene get better.
That's awesome.
Because when you have fundamentals in fighting games specifically, it carries over to every game you invest time in and pick up. It's a time sinker to just play these games professionally, but a lot of the old guys are still good at Street Fighter just because we've been doing it for 20 years, and it comes down to experience. But I still compete because I like to gatekeep, as they call it. But I just there's nothing better than just sitting down with somebody, having a good time, competing. That feeling of I know I'm better than this guy, and taking him out, winning or losing, you're still going to learn every game you play. So that's why I still do it. And now that it stinks because I'm a part of the Capcom Pro Tour, and as that I can't enter my own events anymore on the big scale, but I'm allowed to go to other ones. So we'll see what happens.
So I would echo what these guys are saying. I think most of you here in school, you're not going to want to dedicate the amount of time that would need to be dedicated to become a professional gamer because you're here at school, right? So you should probably focus on that. But if you go start a day job somewhere and you're like, maybe I am going to be good at this. What I would say is to find a new game that you see that's coming up, right? So like when Rocket League was coming up, it's like, okay, you're going to get good at that game before everybody else, or get in a beta of a game that you think might become an esport. Because right now, to catch up to someone playing Dota or League of Legends, I mean, they have probably 10 to 20,000 hours of experience, right? Like, I mean, I work with guys who just play at an amateur level, like pretty high brackets, but they play at an amateur level and they have 4,000 hours, right? And I'm like, I'm never going to catch up to you. Like, that's not possible. But if you come in at the beginning of a game, you're at zero with everybody else, right? And then you just got to put the work in. What's interesting is, so I've probably worked with 15 to 20 ex-professional gamers in my career. I actually went to Full Sail with two guys who were Halo 2 players, did a little tour and stuff like that, and played on a couple of tournaments. But that's something that we would obviously see on a resume and something and be like, wow, that's awesome, you played professionally. And of course, then we're going to challenge you and let you kick our ass, right? But we've also started seeing studios hire people who are professional level gamers to come and be part of QA, and it's a different part of QA. It's not just you're testing normal. You're testing balance. You're testing the gameplay at a different level. You're playing at this high tier that the developers aren't going to be able to play at, that the other QA people aren't going to be able to play at. I know Riot has people like this. We have people like that are just at a higher level. If you're making a PvP game, you need people who are your high tier, because otherwise you're going to see the community within 2 days be better than anyone at your studio and doing things. And this is going to happen anyways, right? Because when you have 100 people building a game, or 200, even 400 people building a game, and you release it to 4 million people, like the stuff that people are doing in your game within 2 days, you're like, what? Like, I think when we released Rage multiplayer, I won every match on day 1, half the matches on day 2, and I didn't win a single match on day 3, because the community just like became that much better. And so there are jobs that are starting to exist on the dev side for people that have an interest in esports. And then obviously, if you go to a bigger company like Riot or Valve or Blizzard to work on their esports, they have teams dedicated to their esports, both events and community coordination and stuff like that. So lots of new jobs coming up in this area.
Good deal. I'm sure that the audience is interested in asking some questions on your own. So at this time, we're going to take some questions from the audience, both on campus and online. If you have a question, here's how we're going to do it. Raise your hand. And if you're online, you get with the moderator, and we'll make sure we get your questions in as well. A microphone will be brought to you. I think we have one here. Oh, one in the back.
Hi, guys. We're going to start with a question from our online crowd.
Sure.
This question is from Stephen LaFleur. He's actually a show production major, and he's just outside the building but watching online.
Hi.
He directs this for Alex, but really I think this is for everybody. And he asks, what would be the best way to start a local fighting game event in my city?
Oof, I get this question. I get emails like this, honestly. Like, I love them, actually, but I get them like 5 times a week now, just to start at local level. That could take days. I want you to email me at ceogaming@gmail.com. I actually am working on a blog post right now with Street Fighter V coming out, how to start a local event. In short, it comes down to community, asking for help. because a lot of us own these systems. It's it's inexpensive to get into fighting games because all you need now is a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One and then an arcade stick or a pad, and it's like an $800 investment, but then you're in there for a couple years. So at a local level, you need to find a local venue. That's the first thing. In my event, when I do it, once you find a location, everything else will kind of fall into place. But shoot me an email, and as soon as I get that post out, it would take forever to talk about it now. But community, getting the help, understanding how to make a comfortable environment where people want to just come and play, whether they win or lose, is the biggest thing that I try to achieve with my events. So.
Would you also say it's worth like going to an event and making sure that you go to an FGC event and like talking to the producer or working it as a volunteer so you understand the challenges that happen?
So most people, like the person asking the question, they probably do go to these events and they see how much fun they are, and then they want to get on the organizing side. It's a very thankless job at the end of the day because 10 years ago, back to the whole producer side, development side, like 10 years ago, if you had a problem with the game, nobody would really hear your voice. You'd send an email and they'd probably never get it. You got Twitter now, you've got Facebook, and man, some people don't hold back when they hate something. So feedback is also a very important thing in anything you do in the gaming industry. Listen to the majority. There's always going to be one or two people that don't like what you're doing. You can't change how they are. They're always going to hate on it. They're always have a problem with it. But when you have a majority of voice, you have to listen to them, and you have to make sure that the majority is always happy.
Hello. Oh, good morning. Thanks for coming out. Thank you, TK, for moderating. I have a question for like all three of you. Do you guys think like technology, like the improvement in technologies like wearable tech and like augmented reality, has to do with the increase in like esports and how like it's become more and more popular?
Excellent question.
Thank you.
There's no doubt to me, and then we were talking about this on the way in. Without technology, this was just people hanging out together, friends getting together, networking their PCs or networking their consoles together. And now we have the ability to say like, no, this is actually a big thing. I actually have a lot of friends that I met online first playing matchmaking with. And now they're like some of my closest friends, which I have technology to thank. I would never have met them otherwise. And I can only imagine as AR is developed, as the future of everything is developed, that will become even more of a connected experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just looking forward to like watching esports in VR.
Reality.
That will just be the coolest thing ever. Like be a spectator, like walking around, like inside the match is just going to be super cool.
Yeah. And then I'll still be blown away by how much better they are than me. Like, wait,
and then I'll vomit trying to watch.
Get a concussion that way.
Yeah. I actually almost got a concussion doing VR once. It was pretty rad.
Story for after this.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Tim. I'm been involved with esports as far as like teams, going back to Halo 2 all the way through recently with Call of Duty, being involved with Team Caliber. And then I'm also a Twitch streamer myself where I try to get involved with esports communities as well. But I've been more on the community and like the team side. So what advice would you give for trying to make that next step to get into like the production and actually moving forward into the business side of esports?
Move to the West Coast? No. I mean, because honestly, there's a lot. Orlando's coming up, though. Like technology-wise, our downtown Orlando area is getting a lot of gaming companies, producing companies. Online, honestly, a big company, ESL, is out on the West Coast. I have a couple friends that his name is Alex Cherry Costa. He used to run my Super Smash Brothers tournaments at my event, and then he went to an event on the West Coast, and he talked to them, and he met with them, and now he left Florida for his dream job. He does the production of all their events for ESL. So big companies like that are always hiring people now as more funding comes in. So to get on the production side, obviously networking, going to these events, and just trying to talk to them and understand how these events work. In terms of like going to like monster.com, looking up jobs and like that, I don't know how big those are just yet, but it's everything's still starting up. So you just have to get out there and meet the right people, I guess.
Yeah, I think to second Alex, if you want to go in production side, I mean, there are more tournaments today than there were a year ago. There are more opportunities for people who want to be on that side, for sure. And if you want to go into a different side, the business side, if you want to work for a brand, you just have to decide what you want, where you want to be. Do you want to be on the technology provider? Do you want to work for a brand? Do you want to work first party or third party? All of those will help guide what will make you happy. And then you find a company who is involved in it already and has opening, or a company that you think may have that need or may be looking for somebody who has experience that you have. And honestly, hit them up. Find somebody who's there. You never know until you ask. And I've learned that over and over and over in business. If you don't ask, you just don't know.
Yeah.
Quick follow-up to that, because you're a streamer already, create like a commentary reel. Take segments of your stream and what you've done and pass that over to somebody that works at a company. And the shorter you make it, the easier it is to follow. That's the sad truth. Like, I always used to go into detail about everything, and the older I've gotten, I've realized just cut it down to one sentence and you can still get the same thought across. Twitter, for example, right? So because you already stream, you're already halfway there. Just take what you're doing now and just put it together so it's easy to follow and understand what you want to do, and then pass that along.
Yeah. Good deal. We have a few questions over here.
I can't see out there still.
If you guys are wondering why we keep looking down, there's a Twitter feed right here.
Yeah,
so if you are tweeting, like, this is why we're looking down, so we can see them.
It's real distracting.
Senpai knows you, don't worry.
I'm like,
Hi, I'm Doug Sykes. I'm a game development student, and I was wondering what makes up an esport game and what sets them apart from regular video games?
Good question.
people playing them.
Yeah, no, multiplayer, obviously. Easy to access, easy to spectate, easy to compete in, have rounds. The shorter the rounds, the more exciting you can get. This is why I've played League of Legends. I only do ARAMs because I don't have 40 minutes to spend where I get distracted by an email and then I lose the whole match because of it. And my friend's like, why are you dying? So anything that's just at a competitive level where one person wins or a team wins, that's how you create an esport. And now, especially with community feedback, companies are starting to create these games that are bare bone products to have the community help them make a better game. So that's what I classify as an esport game.
I think Alex hit it head on. But I mean, the great thing about esports, and we mentioned it earlier, is it has to have a spectator element. Otherwise, it's a competitive game. It's not a technical esport, because you need people watching it for it to gain steam. This is what I thought was actually really interesting. Twitch published their top 10 games, most viewed games of last year. So there were some surprises on that list to me, knowing the obvious, like, perennial favorites like League of Legends, like Dota. But there were some really good games on there where we're like, but you wouldn't have known that if we didn't have the viewership to back it.
Yeah, I think from the development side, it's all the things that Alex said, definitely, but also, you really want to make sure that you have that tiered system in place where people can rise through the ranks. I think that's because one of the things that sucks when you get into early in a game, you're in an alpha or a beta, is they generally don't have that, or they don't have a large enough group, and so you're just constantly beat down by the people who are better than you. So you have to have a way for people to grow through the sport, through the game, and get better at it, to then become that top 5% that are playing, and people are watching. But for us, from a game design perspective, Jamie McGonigal has a great term called the Fiero moment, which is just this like overwhelming stress, then overwhelming success. And watching that is just as exciting as playing that. So, a big save, or like, when it's a 5-on-5 team battle in League, right? And they pull it out, or one guy ends up killing all 5. You are as excited as the person playing that, and you want to jump out of your chair and scream and jump and get excited. That is really, I think, the magic of most esports. I love watching Evo videos of championships because the crowd is so hyped, like more hyped. I've been to World Cups, right? And like the crowd is more hyped at Evo tournaments than any World Cup match I've ever been to. It's crazy.
Evo is probably like the best place to take a brand and be like, this is why gaming's big.
Yeah,
like, it's just like that energy. You can't help but get infected by it. You brought up a good point about stratification, and if like we pull back like to just gaming in general, what will really help, this is my personal view on the future, the more stratified, the more ladders that we have, the better, because it creates opportunities for people to become the top 5%. Whereas in the early stages of any game, it's really focused on those top 5. But as we grow, and this is like Pop Warner football, right? Like, this is like giving the opportunity for people to come up through the ranks, to develop as players, to develop skill sets in a structured format, so that they can then ladder up to being at a professional or a high tier caliber.
Good deal. I think we had a few more questions.
We have another question from our from another online participant. This is from Zachary Taylor. He's a game design major from not far up the road, Oviedo, Florida. And he says, you guys remember pro skier Christy Leskinen, who got upset that gamers got gold medals at the X Games this year. So his question was, as a producer, how do you break into a sports market that does not see the sport as neither a sport nor athletic and broaden the appeal of the sport to penetrate the traditional sports fan base?
Hashtag deal with it. We're here.
That's an excellent question. I defer to Red Bull.
I think there's always going to be tough critics early on in any development of a sport. To me, let's focus on gamers. And I think in 5 years from now, it won't even be a question. I mean, to me, that's already passé. But the gamers are the core of this. I think the scale that we already have demonstrated in viewership is more than enough to justify why it is here and why it's here to stay. So, yeah, I think she'll be regretting that tweet in 5 years for sure.
Yeah, I challenge.
It's like the ESPN commentator already is probably like,
oops. Don't ever drunk tweet. If you're ever drunk, do not pick up the phone.
I challenge any competitor at any level to sit down, watch a game, and then talk with a top 1% player and not see them as another athlete. I just don't see that they will connect on a level of competition that they will instantly understand why they deserve a medal as much as they do, because they dedicate the same amount of time, same amount of resources, the same sacrifices. Just their body may not be as totally destroyed afterwards.
I'll throw out some stats. Over 205 million people watched esports played, and that was in 2014. The market for it is over $750 million now globally, and expected to be $2 billion by 2018. Now, when you put that on the table next to traditional sports, and the question being, is it a real sport? When what a sport is competitors competing and people spectating or watching. And if you got over 200 million, you got traction of over 200 million people watching, people competitively play. I think that the numbers speak for itself.
Yeah. Next question.
Hi, guys. Over here.
Oh, there you go. Gotcha.
As an ex-pro player of World of Warcraft for about 10 years, I found that once I got out of the scene itself, that it was about 2014, jobs were not really something that you could market yourself to as a gamer. How do you find that that's changing now? And also, as a follow-up, as being a pro, back in the day, it was very hard to, maintain a living. You had to stay at the top level, otherwise you'd be homeless without a job, without pay. Mm-hmm. How are the sponsors now coming in to help that and mitigate the effects of not really having a steady income in the game?
I think they'll end up being player to player on how people are working through that. You have players who are making full-time livings off of streaming, the video, the content they produce, as well as the practice that they put in to be at the pro caliber. You have other guys like League of Legends has a pro player stipend now, which I think is pretty radical in what they've been able to do to support that entire scene and what they've been able to do to create that pro circuit. It is the tough reality of any pro sport, and it's the tough reality of a football player. I mean, everyone deals with it at a different level. I'm just really excited about the fact that 2014 to 2015, there are so many more pro players who can enter the esports arena on different games and support themselves. There's so many more streamers who can support themselves full time on that salary, especially considering, even when you look back to 2010, there were not many people who could support themselves on a Twitch salary in 2010. So it's unfortunate timing. I think about this sometimes in my own, like, could I have been a really good gamer if Twitch was around when I was 5? Maybe, but you know what? I'm excited about future generations and the opportunity for kids now that when they're old enough, they potentially have the ability to support themselves full time on a pro gamer salary or on a streaming salary or on a sponsorship salary, whatever that ends up being, whatever those financials end up being, 3, 4, 5 years from now, that there's more opportunity for it.
Yeah, I'd say there's more opportunities in being an esports person than there are in being a professional, like, baseball player, right? Because I've known professional baseball players who are playing in the farm leagues, and they're making like $100 a game, right? They're living on people's couches. They're doing what other odd jobs. They don't have the opportunity to stream or be on YouTube doing commentaries or doing anything else. I think from a dev perspective, as far as getting a job, there are more jobs now for testing games as an ex-professional gamer. Plus, you bring an interesting perspective. So if you were to apply to work at a company like Riot or a company that's working on an esport that you know of, they're developing a new one, you bring a perspective as a competitive gamer with years of experience that's very interesting. So I would definitely make sure that that's on my resume and kind of highlighted and be ready to speak about what makes you more valuable having that experience than just another game developer.
Pro tip, if you can come up with a really cool job title, Twitch will probably hire you.
I think we had a few more questions.
Hi, my name is David Ammons, and I'm in sports marketing. You talked briefly about a governing body like the NFL or NBA or something like that. How important is it going to be for esports to have a governing body to hold players and organizations to a certain standard for us fans to enjoy the content that you're putting out?
Man, end of the day, like I said, it comes down to those 1 to 5 guys that want to work with other people. I think it's just tough because there are so many different video games. There's never going to be just one massive game. But I think it's just the people that start from the beginning. Like it's going to come down from the developers to create, like for League of Legends, that's run by Riot. They do all their events. They support local events, big events, worldwide events. So at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, I don't think it's ever going to happen, to be honest with you. Like with fighting games, for example, EVO's always been the big dog. Now you have Capcom, the developer of Street Fighter V, all the Street Fighter games, making their own Pro Tour. So now everything's probably going to follow suit with them because they are the developer. But half the guys that work on that development team or pushing the Pro Tour were fighting game players just like me. So it started from the local level, and now those guys are living the dream with their dream jobs. They're happy as heck, running an entire tournament series based around it. But it's going to come down. There's just so many different ways to make money in this industry already, and just there's never going to be a single governing body. There can be a single governing body per game, League, Capcom, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Warner Brothers, stuff like that. But it's going to be tough, and that's the thing that probably will hold us back from mainstream is there is no one set of rules. There is no governing body. Like the Smash community, if you go look at any of their tournaments, their rule set is like 4 pages long. It's a freaking Bible. You go to Street Fighter, 2 out of 3, double elimination, good luck. That's it, So it comes down to the game having the developers support it. That will be the big push to make it one unified thing. But on a huge level, it's just going to be tough. I think what's going to happen is when these start making billions of dollars, then the government's going to try to come in and try to add taxing to all these events, stuff like that. So that might change things, but right now everybody in the government just is nobody shoot me after this, but they're still older and they don't understand our generation yet. So give it about another 20 years when people like us are running for president, and then that's when it'll probably change.
I think there's a little bit of crawl, walk, run. It's nice to see that companies, developers like Riot have put some kind of a structure behind it. But even then, they're still bumping into new issues every day with team trade. Should we have that regulated? Should we not? Should we step in? Should we not? Like all these things, it's all new for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so until we understand what all of the issues are going to be, it will be challenging to put any kind of structure around it. But I think it is important that we continue to work towards it for games because it does give the fan a better, more consistent experience, something to look forward to. Some of that goes into how we iterate on games and balance and how patches play into seasons. But that's getting way deep on that.
I mean, aren't there esports testing for Adderall now in players?
There is, actually.
So they're going to start regulating that way, I guess. That's their first way, but yeah.
Yeah, the fear with any giant governing body is that it then becomes as corrupt as the governing bodies of every major sport in the world. So
I think we have time for about 2 or 3 more questions.
Great questions, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent.
Feel free to hit me up on Twitter with more questions at CEO Jebailey.
All right, so when is Red Bull Battlegrounds coming back to Full Sail?
Ooh. It's so funny. I woke up early this morning. I was like, what's going to be the curveball? What are they going to ask me for that I'm not ready for? I will say that myself and my counterpart in Orlando were the team that put on the first event at Full Sail Live in 2010 or 2011 or so when we had the Red Bull LAN here. We love Full Sail. It's been such an amazing support for everything that we've ever done for gaming. So I would say at the opportunity that we could bring back Battlegrounds, I would imagine Full Sail would be supportive of that.
Yeah. And thanks for all you guys.
I'm glad you like Battlegrounds, though, by the way.
I was there. I had a great time as well. Thank you. Red Bull, now they're doing the Kumite in France where they have a steel cage. And, like, Red Bull, they do it big. So I'm excited to, another Battlegrounds with CEO fighting games. I'll come help out.
And from an amateur esports player and like a little-known game, thanks for all you guys have done for esports. A lot of developers are now really receptive to community-run events, and I think a lot of that is thanks to people like you who have really brought it into the foreground for a lot of developers out there.
Yeah. We're just like you guys. We just love video games.
What game do you like the best? Do you have an esport that you like? You can just yell it.
Here's the Storm.
Cool.
Good deal. Good question.
Good morning. I was just wondering from a sports marketing kind of a side, especially for Red, no offense to anyone else on the panel, but where does media marketing, now that you said you have venues and stadiums coming into play as you're growing esports, where do you see media marketing and for people in sports marketing to start getting those opportunities? Because I know Red Bull is very aggressive with the way they market.
One of the great things about esports is it's centered around media. Like that's what really catapulted esports into the limelight. So that ESPN creating an esports section, Yahoo creating an esports section, the Daily Dot's always been around, Turner Broadcasting having their own league. Like the media and telling the story of these is so important. And for Red Bull, we find that actually some of the esports articles that we write are among the most trafficked on our site relative to Olympians, relative to everybody else. So I would say if that's where you're trying to go, stay with it, hustle hard, really find the story angle, because it is that unique story that makes the difference.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi. From a dev perspective and a community perspective, I guess, how do you handle like game balance? Because I know like the FGC, they have a lot of community feedback, and like a company like Valve just seems to do whatever they want.
How do they handle what? I'm sorry?
Feedback.
Game balancing.
Game balancing and feedback.
Man, it's tough. End of the day, it comes down to, a group of guys. So, like, for example, with Killer Instinct, I read feedback on the forums every day, on Twitter, and it's just formulating the majority vote, so to speak, just what everyone is having a problem with. When it comes down to balance, it's tough because, in every game, you want to make every character the best you can in a fighting game, but there's just no way to keep it all even. Everyone's going to have better moves, frame data, it's a more technical talk type of thing. But in terms of how we balance it, it's different now than 10 years ago, because once you put out a fighting game, that was it. There was no changing it. Capcom vs. SNK2 is one of my favorite games of all time, where they had basically, in layman's terms, they had a move called roll cancel, where you could hit 2 buttons to roll, but if you canceled it at the first 9 frames of the roll, whatever move, like if you threw a fireball, your whole body would go through somebody throwing a fireball at you. So stuff like that could not be taken out. Now you have patching, updates all the time. So companies are, they might, be putting out games sooner than they should because they want the game to be out there. They want the game to make money. They want players to play the game and have a good time. And then from there, we get all this feedback from what's problem with the game. We watch everything. Now there's Twitch streams. You can watch players, Now there's data out there so easy to find if there's something wrong. So somebody's like, hey, this is on YouTube. You got to watch it. We will watch it. Everybody at our development team, we watch everything. I'll see a funny Killer Instinct video. I put it in our Skype chat, So we're watching pretty much everything we can. There's set schedules when you're creating these games, fighting games especially, that you have deadlines, you have to do this, you have priorities. So we'll have a QA team try to squash out these certain bugs as fast as we can in the limited time that we have before we have to put it out. But now with constant updating, you still get multiple chances to fix what's wrong.
So one of the most interesting things is, especially in games like MOBAs and free-to-play games, is everybody is releasing earlier to get the community to give the feedback to help balance a game because, like I said, 100 people working on a game or 200 people working on a game is not enough data points. So every game uses analytics now. There's analytics hooks and everything. Like literally from I can tell how many times you clicked on the menu button to how many times you used a spell. And all that data, and there's a lot of analysts that are at these big companies now, all that data is brought in with the feedback. And so a lot of times you'll get this majority feedback and it's people complaining. It's like when you're sick, right? You complain about the symptoms, not the actual problem. So you'll get a bunch of feedback from people and you'll be like, okay, that sounds like it could be the problem, but I'm going to go look at the analytics, and you actually find the root of the problem and you fix it that way. And so balancing tends to be pretty analytics driven, but also that, like you said, the feedback is super important, and that's why you see more games in alphas and betas, because before the wide community comes in, they want the people who have a lot of experience playing games in there saying, hey, this move is really unbalanced and stuff like that. And I can say, having worked on 3 PvP games, we argue about it a lot in the office about balance. I actually played a match of Paragon the other day, and I ran into one of the producers, and I was like, if you don't take this character's blah, blah, blah move out, I'm never playing your game again because it's super unbalanced. And he's like, oh, yeah, we nerfed that yesterday. And I was like, okay, I'll go play now. So it's a constant thing. I mean, most people do weekly to monthly updates and balance fixes. And like you said, the cool thing about streaming and things like that is we actually have people, same for Fortnite, we have QA people whose jobs are to just take this feedback compared to bugs or analytics that we already have and make sure that we're getting it in the most succinct way possible. And so sometimes people will be like, you didn't respond to my feedback. And it's like, okay, I have 10,000 pieces of feedback coming in and I have 50 people working on my game, right? So you do have an order that you go to things, and we tend to do, whenever we do an update, we do one big thing that the majority of people are like, we hate this. And so, you always try and help.
I mean, if only they could have taken out Odd Job from GoldenEye, man. That guy was OP.
The secret to Odd Job, though, is if you press down twice on the little yellow arrows, you headshot him every time.
Yep. But not
like,
everyone
no Odd
knew
Job.
that
I'm like,
we didn't have internet then.
Play Odd Job all you want, suckers.
And that goes our panel for the day. Let's give our panelists and yourself a round of applause. I'd like to thank you all for attending today's session on the rising tide of esports. I hope that this was fruitful to you. I hope that it was entertaining, and I hope that all your questions were answered. I'd like to give a special thanks to our panelists, from our very own Grant to our Red Bull Sam and Alex, for providing some insight in the world of esports. And I hope you guys continue to enjoy the rest of your day.